Jurassic World Evolution 3 was developed by Frontier Developments, famous for its work on park simulation and management games like Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster. The development focused on elevating the series' immersion and strategic depth, incorporating community feedback to refine and expand the dinosaur theme park management experiences. Frontier sought to create something that not only offered more variety and control, but also organically connected all its new systems within the gameplay, resulting in a more elaborate and engaging title. One of the biggest new features that translated the spirit of the development was the island generation system, which allows players to create an infinite number of custom islands to build their parks. This system not only expands creativity, allowing fine control over the shape of islands, terrains, trees, and bodies of water, but also reinforces the social and shareable aspect, as players can exchange island DNA codes and submit their creations to the Frontier Workshop. This tool represents the team's effort to deliver a powerful and flexible sandbox experience, something the fanbase had always asked for, showing a clear ambition to make the game not just a simulation, but a playground for unbridled creativity. Another major influence on the development was the introduction of dinosaur crossbreeding and breeding, something that had been a long-standing request from fans. The advanced breeding system is not just cosmetic, it directly impacts the game's strategy. Dinos now have juveniles that inherit genetic traits from their parents, adding a layer of family and biological management that is unprecedented, requiring the player's attention and meticulous planning to keep the park sustainable and the animals happy. This depth brought that sense of a living world to the series, something Frontier was eager to achieve, and it gives a new dimension to the title, making each park unique and personal. The development was also marked by intense work on terrain customization and manipulation, allowing for the sculpting of valleys, mountains, rivers, and waterfalls. This ability to shape the environment not only enhances the visual aspect, but also directly influences the well-being of the dinosaurs. The team wanted the enclosure designs to be both functional and beautiful, requiring the player to balance aesthetic space with the real needs of the animals. This attention to detail reflects a clear ambition from Frontier to take ecological sustainability seriously within the simulation, an evolutionary step for the series. Personally, I see the development of Jurassic World Evolution 3 as a very solid effort from a team that not only wants to deliver a more beautiful and complex game, but also wants to elevate the simulation to a level where creativity and environmental responsibility meet. The respect for the community, reflected in the inclusion of such robust tools as the island generator, as well as the emphasis on detailed dinosaur and habitat management, seems to me a mature and exciting move for the series. It's interesting to note how Frontier combined technologies and ideas that are common in modern simulation games, but with a unique charm brought by the charisma of the dinosaurs and the Jurassic Park universe. I have a personal view that the game is not just for old fans, but an invitation for new players to discover the complexity and pleasure of managing theme parks with a unique touch of science fiction and adventure. The way Frontier developed the mechanics to be accessible to newcomers while offering depth for veterans is remarkable. This shows a rare level of care in games of this franchise that, in the past, sometimes lost focus on the balance between management and fun. Jurassic World Evolution 3 brings a narrative approach that, to some extent, distances itself from the direct constraints of the cinematic franchise, offering a story with greater creative freedom. The game features a campaign that takes the player to manage theme parks in new and varied locations, such as Japan and Hawaii, which already sounds promising for those who enjoy seeing new environments and challenges beyond the traditional fictional islands. The presence of the iconic Dr. Ian Malcolm, voiced by Jeff Goldblum, provides a familiar and fun guiding thread to the story, maintaining the connection with the movie universe, but with its own narratives and decisions within the game. In this campaign, the player must deal with situations ranging from facility repairs to the complex task of ensuring the well-being of the dinosaurs, which creates a dynamic and challenging experience. One of the aspects that most caught my attention in the story of Jurassic World Evolution 3 is how it expands the concept of management to include not only the construction of the park, but also a deeper dive into the life within it. The narrative explores the creation and formation of dinosaur families, something that humanizes, or rather, dinosaurises these creatures by showing their bonds and social behavior. This creates a more emotional connection for the player, who now thinks not just as a cold administrator, but as someone who needs to understand and care for these living beings, dealing with their needs, behaviors, and even the natural dangers they face. It's a story that is built from this care and the responsibility of protecting and balancing a prehistoric world within the park. The setting of the story also gives a sense of a global expansion of the Jurassic World saga, with a campaign that covers different regions of the world and, consequently, diverse environments and climates. This geographical diversity not only brings interesting variations in scenery, but also in the narrative, as each location imposes its own challenges and stories, whether due to climatic pressure, interaction with local fauna, or incidents caused by the dinosaurs themselves. The story takes advantage of this to vary the pace and types of missions, maintaining the constant feeling that the player is on an adventure that unfolds around the world with unique tensions and surprises at every step. The plot is driven not only by management crises and challenges, but by the interactions of recurring characters and their motivations, which gives more depth to the story. Ian Malcolm, for example, serves as a voice of reason and skepticism, always alert to the dangers involving genetic manipulation and the coexistence of humans and dinosaurs. This presence helps to anchor a philosophical layer in the story, which discusses the limits of science and the ethics behind controlling prehistoric life, something that adds to the interest for an audience that wants more than just action and construction. The narrative manages to balance this reflection with moments of tension and emotion during park crises. Interestingly, the way the story highlights the evolution of the dinosaurs themselves, including the environment where they live, brings a narrative dynamic that fits naturally into the gameplay. The fact that we can now customize habitats with ponds, forests, and elevated areas creates an implicit story of adaptation and survival that the player can tell while taking care of the park. The behavior of the dinosaurs, ranging from defending their young to territorial confrontations, is an integral part of this organic narrative that is built in the game. It is a living narrative, which changes with the player's actions and brings a much greater layer of immersion. Personally, this narrative appeals to me because it places the player in a more active and emotionally engaging position than in previous versions. It's not just a cold and distant management game, but a story of life and evolution, where decisions directly affect the fate of these creatures and the park. The risk and adventure are mixed with a sense of responsibility that only a true dinosaur lover and fan of the franchise can feel. I also think it's incredible that the story doesn't slavishly imitate the movies, but allows itself to invent and create, becoming an original experience, which surely makes the game less predictable and more exciting to follow until the end. Jurassic World Evolution 3, in its story, tries and succeeds in going beyond the obvious of the franchise, mixing administration, science, emotion, and adventure in a narrative package that expands across the world and through the biology of these fascinating prehistoric beings. The campaign is not just about building parks, but about creating a reality where the player has a voice and influence on the future of these ecosystems. For those who like stories with layers, with well-known characters and real dilemmas involving the power of genetic creation, the game promises a rich, engaging, and, above all, a Jurassic-spirited experience that always fascinates. It is the narrative of a prehistoric dream that finally takes shape in the hands of the player. Jurassic World Evolution 3 presents gameplay that delves much deeper into the mechanics of park and dinosaur management than its predecessors, which got me quite excited right from the start. The feeling I got is that the game really wants to put you in the role of a manager from the Jurassic Park franchise, with a strong focus on details like the precise design of enclosures and the specific needs of each species. The terrain sculpting tools are one of the stars here, allowing you to create slopes, lakes, waterfalls, and elevations, which brings a layer of challenge and creativity never seen before in the series. This completely changes the dynamic of keeping dinosaurs comfortable and well-housed, which positively surprised me with the freedom it offers to create incredible enclosures, not just traditional fence walls. One of the points I liked most about the gameplay is the dinosaur breeding and reproduction system. The inclusion of baby dinosaurs with their own behaviors brings much more life and personality to the park. It's not just a cosmetic system. Genetic characteristics and traits are passed from parents to offspring, allowing for a strategic aspect in dinosaur breeding. I felt that this adds a new depth to the gameplay, where you can control not only how they live, but also how they evolve within the park. This layer of family care brought an unexpected emotion, which connects the player emotionally to the dinosaurs, something that was missing in previous versions. The level of customization for buildings has also evolved a lot. Jurassic World Evolution 3 allows for a modular construction system that makes assembling the park much more personalized. This is great because it breaks that feeling of being stuck with pre-made models, making room for each park to have a unique visual identity. However, personally, I thought the interface for building and manipulating these modules could still be improved, especially for smoother control on consoles. But it's already a significant step forward that opens up space for creativity and care in the layout, which for me is essential in a simulation and management game. Speaking of dinosaur behavior, although the models are very well animated and with more realistic interactions, I missed a greater unpredictability and uniqueness in the animals' fights and actions. The artificial intelligence can still be a bit mechanical at times, and it lacked that sense of organic chaos that could make escapes and fights more tense and exciting. Still, seeing dinosaurs walking in herds, interacting with the environment, and even climatic moments influencing their behavior was something I found quite immersive and rewarding. The gameplay also stands out in the integration of attractions for park visitors, especially with the introduction of the Cretaceous Cruise, a kind of boat ride that passes through aquatic and terrestrial enclosures. This adds a more dynamic and diverse touch to the experience, as it's not just about managing the creatures, but also about the visitor experience, which is a fundamental part of the park's success. In my perception, this brings the game closer to the real feel of a theme park and opens up an interesting range for attraction design, using the public as an active element of the gameplay. Another aspect that caught my attention is the complexity of the dinosaur welfare system, which goes beyond the basics. It's not just about giving food and water. The game requires you to think about the available visual space, vegetation, access, and rest areas to ensure the animals are calm and healthy. This need to balance a functional and visually interesting habitat for both humans and dinosaurs made me invest time in meticulously planning every corner. I especially like this because it gives a greater sense of responsibility and makes each park unique, with different experiences based on how you handle these variables. A more personal point is that the gameplay seems more mature and focused on being a complete experience, even though it has its rough edges, like some repetition in the dinosaur animations, and moments where management can feel too bureaucratic. Still, for someone like me who enjoys a balance between detailed simulation and fun, the game provides a very engaging experience. I feel that the franchise has finally found its own identity in this third chapter, delivering the tension, strategy, and wonder of a Jurassic Park with its own life and personality, something that makes me excited to explore every corner of my parks. These aspects together make Jurassic World Evolution 3 a robust title that, in my opinion, is more about creating connections and stories within the park than just about numbers and buildings. The balanced gameplay between management, creative creation, and interaction with the dinosaurs brings a freshness to the series that fans and new players can enjoy with great satisfaction. Jurassic World Evolution 3 brings a significant advance in graphical quality compared to its predecessors, presenting a visual that blends realism and meticulous details that capture the essence of dinosaurs and prehistoric environments. From the textures of the scales to the behavior of the animals, the game displays remarkable care in 3D design, which helps create intense visual immersion. The enhanced use of lighting and shadows adds depth to the scenes, giving an almost cinematic look to the landscapes and dinosaurs, which is a major differentiator for those who follow the series. Another strong point in the graphics is the diversity and fidelity of the environments. The scenarios are not just static backgrounds, but living spaces with dense vegetation, varied natural details, and dynamic weather effects that change according to the park's conditions. This brings a sense of realism that I particularly liked, as it makes each park feel like a unique ecosystem, and the interaction between natural light and shadows on the leaves, rocks, and water is impressive. The feeling of truly taking care of a Jurassic Park was greatly reinforced by this environmental detail. However, the color palette used in Jurassic World Evolution 3 is an aspect that generates divided opinions. Personally, I think the game has a slightly more sober and less vibrant aesthetic than the first edition, which may be a matter of taste, but it ends up making the environment a little less fantastic and more realistic. Some fans prefer the brighter colors of the first game, which gave a unique and almost magical tone to Jurassic Park, while here there is a greater focus on more natural and less saturated tones, which seems to me an interesting bet for the game's style, even though I miss a bit more life in the colors. The detail in the dinosaur animations also deserves mention. The movements are fluid, with attention to small nuances that reflect real behaviors, like the sway of muscles and the fact that pterosaurs now walk on the ground, which adds a touch of authenticity. These animations elevate the level at which the visuals work. It's not just about the resolution or the modeling, but what happens in motion that convinced me that this game strives to transcend the limit of just pretty visuals to real engagement with the Jurassic experience. In terms of graphics technologies, the game takes advantage of advanced features available for modern PCs, such as NVIDIA's DLSS 4, which helps improve frame rates without sacrificing visual quality, as well as ray tracing effects that make reflections and lighting more realistic. These technical enhancements make the experience smoother and more visually appealing for those with compatible hardware, and they are an indication of the developer's concern in offering a robust graphical presentation that adapts well to both casual players and high-performance enthusiasts. Despite all these qualities, some criticisms point to the use of filters and color correction that, for some, end up masking the natural beauty of the environments and dinosaurs. I understand this frustration, as at times the game seems to stray a bit from the brightness and vibrancy that could give a more cinematic and exciting touch, especially in scenes that should have a visual impact. From my point of view, a more careful adjustment of these filters could better balance realism and visual intensity without losing either one. The graphics of Jurassic World Evolution 3 impress with their richness of detail, the complexity of the animations, and the incorporated technical advancements, making it one of the most beautiful games in the series to date. The more naturalistic aesthetic may not please everyone, but for me, this is a convincing step towards a more serious and immersive representation of Jurassic Parks. The nostalgia of the previous games mixes well with this new, more realistic vision, creating a graphical experience that captured my interest and left me very excited to explore the parks with this visual quality. Performance is one of the most successful aspects of the game, especially considering the series' history of optimization issues, and it's something that left me truly relieved when testing the first versions. The minimum requirements are surprisingly accessible for a 2025 game, requiring only a GTX 1060, an i5-6600K, and 16 gigs of RAM, which means that even older PCs or laptops with modest configurations will be able to run the experience without major stuttering, as long as they use an SSD, which is mandatory at all levels. This is a huge relief because in previous Frontier games, like Jurassic World Evolution 2 itself, even robust hardware could suffer from frame drops in fuller parks, and knowing that the studio has learned from these mistakes gives me more confidence in the game. In practice, the game runs with remarkable fluidity, especially on recommended settings, which include cards like the RTX 2070 Super or RX 6700 XT, promising a stable 60 FPS experience at 1440p resolution with high graphics settings. It's noticeable that the camera moves much more smoothly, even when flying over large maps with dozens of dinosaurs, visitors, and vehicles in motion, something that would previously cause constant micro-stutters. The feeling is of a more mature engine, with better resource management and asynchronous loading, which makes the player feel in absolute control of the park without interruptions that break the immersion. One of the major differentiators for performance is the native support for DLSS 4 with multi-frame generation, a technology that will be exclusive to owners of GeForce RTX 40 and 50 series cards, and which promises to multiply the frames per second without compromising visual quality. This is especially relevant in moments of chaos, such as dinosaur escapes or storms, when the number of entities on the screen increases exponentially, and the physics and AI processing can overload the system. Having this layer of AI acceleration means that even mid-range configurations will be able to achieve high frame rates, which is essential to keep the gameplay responsive and enjoyable, especially in long construction and management sessions. Overall stability was a clear priority in development, something that is apparent even in the little things, like the smooth movement of interface windows and the immediate response to modular construction commands, which now allow you to customize every wall, window, and angle of the buildings. In previous games, any complex action could cause a small delay, but now everything seems more integrated and responsive, as if the game breathes better. This may seem like a technical detail, but in practice it makes a huge difference in the experience of long construction and planning sessions, where every second of delay accumulates and becomes irritating. Another positive point is the download size, only 25 GB, something almost unbelievable in this day and age, where many titles exceed 100 GB. This not only makes installation easier, but also suggests more optimized code, with fewer redundant assets or unnecessarily inflated textures. Of course, this might raise questions about the visual depth or variety of content, but in the context of a simulation game, I prefer a lean and well-executed product over one that takes up a lot of space without justification. The feeling is that Frontier focused on functional quality, not on the quantity of megabytes. The performance gives me a sense of confidence that the predecessors didn't always manage to convey. It's a game that seems to have learned from its own mistakes and from technological advancements, offering a solid technical foundation so that the player can focus on what really matters: creating, managing, and marveling at the world of dinosaurs without having to keep adjusting settings or restarting due to crashes. It's an important step, and perhaps a quiet one, but essential for the future of the franchise. Jurassic World Evolution 3 is worth it at launch for those seeking real evolution in the dinosaur park simulation genre, especially for bringing deep mechanics like breeding with sexual dimorphism, babies, and more dynamic ecosystems. The ability to create dinosaur families with distinct behaviors between males, females, and juveniles transforms the experience, requiring more careful planning to protect the young and prevent escapes caused by protective instincts. This adds a level of immersion that previous games didn't have, making the launch especially attractive for fans of the franchise who want to see their parks as living habitats, not just attractions. The game is mainly recommended for those who have already enjoyed the previous titles and want more depth, not for those looking for a complete revolution in the style. Frontier seems to have listened to some of the community's requests, with improvements in terrain editing, more natural enclosures, and attractions like the balloon tour and the dinosaur encounter, which increase the realism and visitor engagement. However, there are legitimate concerns that the game might still feel like an enhanced expansion rather than a generational leap, repeating known mechanics with little radical innovation. For those who are just getting into the series, it might be better to wait for sales or post-launch reviews, as the cost-benefit might not be worth it if the game doesn't bring substantial changes to the core gameplay. Personally, I see the launch as a necessary but conservative step. The inclusion of babies and the emphasis on ecosystems are clear wins, but the fear that it's more of the same persists, especially with reports that behaviors can still be predictable and escapes repetitive. The feeling is that Frontier is consolidating what already works, rather than taking risks with bold ideas like a first-person mode or more unpredictable emergency systems. Still, the improved control over the terrain and the modular customization of scenery allow for a creativity that was previously limited, which may be enough to justify an immediate purchase for collectors and content creators. The integration with the Frontier Workshop also promises a long life for the game, with community creations keeping the interest alive even after launch.